Watch The Atheist Experience live Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/ytaxp and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callaxp.
It's time to get sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the only ACA show that isn't allowed to post links to any of the websites we talk about. Christy Powell, my host tonight, is going to try really hard to convince us he's never heard of any dirty things. Christy, how you doing? Christy. At least we got our mic unplug out of the way early. I am your co-host, Nate Smith, and our guest tonight is the host of all the best parties on the internets. Welcome, Tanjil.
Hi, how are you, Nate?
I am doing well. I'm doing really well.
Excellent.
Hopefully, we had you on for this episode a little while ago, but I'm glad we are going to be revisiting it. So,
yep,
tonight,
we'll try again.
Oh, it's going to be a banger. Tonight, we are cocked, locked, and ready to talk. So, folks, give us a call at 512-991-9242 or on les internets at tiny.cc/callsex because the show is coming right now.
All right. Well, if you're hearing me, yeah?
I am hearing you. There's a little bit of a whiskey voice going on, but I'm glad you're back with us, Christy.
All right. Well, Nate, you keep going, and I'll work with the crew to get that sorted out. Thanks so much.
Perfect. So, we have a little segment here. It's called What's Turning Me On? And
what's turning you on, Nate?
What's turning me on this week? Well, I had to think about this a little bit, but a little bit of light bondage is turning me on this week. You know, I think too often, and you can probably relate to this, but too often in the dom sub relationship, it's the sub that's getting, tied up and used.
All the attention.
Yeah. And, it can be kind of fun to switch up that dynamic a little bit. I had a bit of fun with my partner earlier this week, and I got to tell you, it's fun to change roles a little bit. So, light bondage, it's not just for submissives anymore. How about you, Tanjil?
Well, I've been reminiscing and listening to some music. I have a little bit of a voice fetish, actually, and there's an amazing voice by the name of Corpse Husband, and he does a song called "E-Girls Are Ruining My Life," and his voice always gets to me, along with I can't think of his name, the lead singer from Bush who does Glycerine.
Gavin
so
Rossdale.
I've been going through. Yes, Gavin Rossdale, that's it. And listening to him and Tool and all my old faves. And those voices just do it for me.
Gavin Rossdale, I have to say, when Bush came out with its first album, I think I was in like maybe grade 10. And it was definitely one of the first voices that I was like, hey there, mister. How you doing? The old Joey from Friends. How you doing, Gavin?
Yeah. Pink also, her voice really gets to me as well. That raspy voice, non-blondes and, lots of them.
The one who always did it for me was Jennifer Tilly.
I don't know that name.
She played the bride of Chucky. in the.
Oh, I'm not
She's got a really
familiar.
raspy,
That's
wispy
my
voice, and
group that I would
oh,
have gone to.
Christy knows what I'm talking about.
Yes. Okay. So y'all are hearing me clearly now, right? Yeah.
Oh no, just very faintly, Christy.
Yeah, you're
We'll work
super quiet,
on it.
but I can
Y'all
hear
continue.
you.
That mic is really misbehaving.
Yeah,
It
yeah. You know
might
what
need a
would?
Hey,
spanking.
well, y'all enjoy the show. I'll work with the crew. We'll get it sorted out on my end. Don't let me get away.
Okay.
You know what would turn me on this week? Some volume.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So
Take me
Christy's
to
gonna
10,
work on.
baby. Take me to 10.
Wow. Okay. So before we continue, before we go any further, I
Mhm.
have been asked to make this special announcement. For those of you with weak constitutions, please cover your eyes and ears for the next 2 minutes. For those of you left, the ACA is pleased to announce we'll be doing something extra special this Halloween. You are not going to want to miss this first of its kind event. It's going to air shortly after the Atheist Experience on October the 31st. So make sure you're sitting down and check this preview out for this upcoming event, if you dare.
Hi everybody, Objectively Dan here from the ACA's very own Truth Wanted, and I am here at the Driscoll Hotel, Texas's supposedly most haunted hotel. And we are going to be doing a very special live event on October 31st, Halloween night, where we are going to be live streaming in the hotel's allegedly most haunted room.
God, that's good.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Hey, you're back,
scary.
Christy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. So I'm sounding all right.
Yes, for a minute I
Yay.
thought I was gonna have to stick my hand up your ass and do a whole ventriloquist thing.
Right, that would have worked for me. Super sorry to have interrupted the start of the show. Thank y'all for carrying on. I'm bummed out because I was really excited to read some of my dumb jokes, but very excited to be jumping into this conversation and to talk a little bit about FetLife.
Yay.
Yeah. So, Tanjil, you are perhaps the only person that I know who's patient enough to like actually navigate social media and admin all of these groups. And you do all of this like moderating and great work for the atheist community. I have to ask, like, how did you jump on the social media train? Like, were you a Zynga person, or did you get into the MySpace phase, or it's something after that? Like, what's your story here?
Oh God, I'm just old. I'm
I'm
just old.
sitting
And
talking about Zynga and MySpace, so don't think you have a monopoly on these
Yes,
ideas.
I had a MySpace. Yeah. I've just been around a really long time. And FetLife, well, that's the only place to go, isn't it? So I just ended up there, as you do, as you do.
Sure. Well, how does FetLife, I guess, historically and currently fit into your social media pantheon?
Well, I'm not active right now, but I have been for many, many years.
Mhm.
And FetLife is a wonderful invention. It's like a worldwide, I would describe it as like a trade show. You go there as a centralized organization to try and find your people in your area, in the types of interests that you have and the groups that you're after. People make a lot of mistakes when they go there. They think that they can jump online on FetLife and find people there. That's not really how it works. So should I jump into how it does work, or?
Yeah, well, I
Would you?
let's do that. I mean, go ahead and if you would give us kind of the basic primer, because I know that there's a non-zero percentage of the audience that's listening to this that's never even heard of FetLife, and plenty of people that are maybe pretending that they've never heard of FetLife.
Right,
But how would
Christy?
you describe
Christy?
how would you describe maybe the basics of the website for the uninitiated?
All right. So FetLife is, in fact, a worldwide meeting place for people who are into BDSM or fetish, um, who want to connect. And because it's worldwide, you have a fairly good chance of meeting people in your area. And I would say most people who are into BDSM or fetish would know of FetLife and would go there as an initial meeting spot. So when you go there, you register yourself a profile, much like Facebook or any other place. But then it's a little bit more difficult. So if you're just feeling a bit frisky on a Saturday night, you're not going to jump on there and find people. That's not how it works. You need to jump on there, do your profile, and then you need to actually search for groups to join. Normally, you would do that by searching your local area, especially if you want to meet people in your local area. If you just want to do online things, it's a little bit different. But if you want to actually meet people, you look for your online things, especially munches. Munches are meetup lunches, where you actually get to meet people who are in your community. They usually hold these meetings once a month, and you actually get to meet, sit down, and have lunch with people who are participating in these groups. That is the absolute best way to break into your little community. And you'll find that most people don't actually interact much on FetLife itself as a chat site or anything like that. They tend to break away into chat groups like WhatsApp and Kik chat groups. And until you're in one of those, you're really not going to find a lot of action. I might also add that as a newbie, when you first get onto FetLife, that's probably where you're most likely to encounter predators, especially women. Now, when I talk about predation, I really need to make it clear that although BDSM does have its share of predators, so does the pub on a Saturday night.
Sure.
You're not going to get any greater number of predators in FetLife than you would in any other realm of life. There are creepers everywhere you go, and I honestly don't think there's any greater proportion in the BDSM realm. In fact, I think the BDSM realm is somewhat safer in many, many aspects.
I think that that's why things like FetLife exist, is to form community and circle the wagons a little bit as a way of keeping predators out. And I know that this can be a little bit of a no true Scotsman fallacy, but I would even go so far as to say that there aren't predators in the kink community, or that there aren't predators in kink, because that's not kink. And I worry about how when we're having these conversations about BDSM culture and some of these things, that there's always this need to kind of like mark that disclaimer. But in my mind, at least conceptually, I almost think of it more as like the sharks swimming around the school rather than being part of it. Is that a fair framework at all?
Absolutely fair. That's exactly my experience. People will search for newbies on the FetLife profiles, and they'll immediately message them. So all I can say is do not respond. Find your groups, join your groups, wait till you've met people either online or through the munches. Get into Kik chat groups, wait till you've actually met people who are in the communities, who are active players, and they will surround you and keep you safe. I actually had what I called a douche list, and we had all the profiles of the normal creepers, and any newbies that joined our groups, we would give them those lists so that they could steer clear. We were really, really good at keeping out the creepers. And so it can be a little bit hard to break into the groups because they really want to know that you're a good person with good intentions. So don't go in full bore. Be prepared to sit back and spend some time gaining trust and just listening and watching and learning as much as you possibly can. On FetLife, you can actually search a group for newbies who will discuss etiquette and what you can do as a newbie to break in. So there's lots of really good reading and information on there, but the best thing, of course, is to go to a munch, meet people, and just ask. And you'll find that most people in the BDSM communities are actually beautiful, loving, kind, caring people who want to help you, who want to help you break in if you're a nice person.
Mm.
If you're a cocksure, overconfident, smartass 18-year-old who wants to call yourself a master, forget it. You'll get the cold shoulder really quickly. But if you just humbly say, this is what I really want to break into, I need help, you'll find that they can't do enough for you.
So
Yeah,
it's
and
such
if I could
yeah, please, Nate, go ahead.
real quick here, like these munches. Speaking of going in guns blazing, like nobody there is in character, nobody there is in
Yeah.
costume, and that was
Yeah.
one thing that that a lot of people can worry about. I know when they're starting to get into these, it's like, well, what if I see somebody I know? And it's like,
Mhm.
they're not going to know that you're at a munch. They're just going to see you out with a bunch of people.
Sure.
So it's not like that. There's really nothing to fear as far as that goes. I just wanted to throw
Yeah.
that in. Sorry, Christy. Return to your regular scheduled interview.
No. I mean, that's an important aspect of the kink community. But when we're talking about FetLife itself, it's a confusing website because I mean the way you describe it, Tanjil, it's almost like it's more like giving out your card so that people can have like just the barest minimum about you to then
Yeah.
maybe get invited to like a separate community. I mean, how
Correct.
am I
It's more like a
conceptualizing well?
gateway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like a gateway, or as I said, a trade show. You're really going to
Mm,
FetLife to find the places that you need to be. FetLife isn't the place to be, but it's the central point, like a directory. So it's just not a matter. Like I said, if you're horny one night and you just want to jump on and meet someone, it's just not going to happen that way. Well,
sure.
if it does, it would be a disaster in my personal opinion. If it's not, that would be pure fluke. It takes quite a while to break into your group. I would normally recommend that you search groups by your area, especially if you want to actually play and become part of a playing community. And also any BDSM clubs in your area, because clubs will advertise discounts for nights and events and things like that. So you really want to be on their group list. And yeah, and then just get to know people in that community. You will find that there will be chat groups that are separate. And that's where the action happens. If you can find a lovely little group, a chat group, you'll find once they've met you, or you've been chatting with them for a long time, they'll start inviting you to private parties and things like that if you're the type of person that they want. So I used to run about around 10 kick chat groups with 50 people apiece. And we had some wonderful players with all different, all my groups were with different interests, and we would hold parties. And all those people were known and trusted. They were known to only play safely with protection. I knew that they were reliable. I knew that they wouldn't hurt anyone. I knew that they would obey safe words. We just knew that they were trustworthy people. And in fact, people would often contact me and just say, look, I need an extra 5 people for a play night. Can you recommend, and I would send people to other parties.
Hmm.
So it's wonderful once you're in a good little group. But
It's
getting
such
into them isn't that easy.
yeah, well, it's such a strange website in that way because
It
usually when we're
is.
talking to people about staying safe online, it's like,
Mm.
oh, well, if somebody asks you to follow them to like a third location, like to jump onto a follow-up link, usually that's a bad idea. But you're saying that here, that's kind of what you're there for, is to almost use this as like a directory or a phone book to maybe get invited to that next step.
Absolutely. And it's not that you're going to follow them, you need to do the pursuing. So if it was
Sure.
me, what I would do is find out who holds the munches in my area, who hosts them. Then I would private message them, say, I'm new to this site. I'm in your area. I see that you host munches. Could you recommend the appropriate groups for me and or any chat groups that you could recommend? The people who hold these munches will normally know exactly where you should be. So by being proactive, you'll be able to find the right spot to be.
Hmm. Well, what can you tell us about the features of FetLife.com itself? I mean, there are groups, there are individual pages, there's messaging back and forth. It
Yeah.
frankly all looks like it hasn't been updated since the MySpace era. But is there any value to those aspects of the website, or how do you navigate those?
Well, look, there's lots of little features and things. I mean, obviously, you can search different things. There's lots of stories and reading. You could be a free member there and have lots and lots of free fun if you're not particularly wanting to meet up with people. There's also what we call the Fet celebrity. So if you post something that gets lots of likes, you have a featured video. I've been a Fet celebrity for my needle play and had my video up there for months on end. Yeah, it's a good perp site. So if you just want to browse and have fun, there's tons of content, tons and tons and tons. So it does have a lot of good features for a free site. It really does.
Yeah, I do think there's at least some value in sort of browsing different kinks and fetishes out in the wild.
Absolutely.
You know, as opposed to
Absolutely.
going to a like Pornhub or some other tube site and seeing like
Yeah.
the professionally produced like pornography version of a particular kink, seeing
Yeah.
how people actually utilize these in sort of an amateur way, I think can have a lot of value.
It really does. It really does, especially when you see people doing things like shibari, basic shibari and things like that. And they don't just post porn. People will do instructional videos. I mean, most of it's just basic porn, but there are
Very
other things to
amateur
be
porn.
found. Yeah, there are, because I mean a lot of exhibitionists are obviously on there,
Sure.
and that's all wonderful too. But there are some
Amateur porn's not a
semi-professionals.
criticism. It's just a
No,
descriptor.
it's not. That's not.
Best porn is amateur porn. Let's come
Yeah.
on.
But there's a lot of different themes and items of interest, and just to there's even things like testing your BDSM bents. So you can do a little bit of a questionnaire and figure out who and what you are, where your interests lie. Yeah, it can be little fun browsing for the afternoon. But as I said, a lot of people will jump on and think they can just meet someone on FetLife. That's highly irregular. That just won't happen. It's somewhere that you utilize to get where you need to be, and it does take some time to break into the community.
Sure. Well, I want to give Nate a chance to jump on the phones. But before he does, you mentioned sort of this sometimes risk of predators. And I guess I'm curious about what the dangers are, what the downsides of having a nudity allowed Facebook can actually look like.
Sorry, who have you directed that at, me or
Yeah, no, Tanjil, I just wanted
Yep.
to hear what some of
Okay.
the risks are from some of these asshole folks that might use this website as a opportunity to meet people who are a little bit less prepared or unsuspecting.
Well, the worst I've heard of is not as bad as you'd think. The worst I've heard of is men posing as women to meet up with men who have robbed them. That was pretty awful.
Sure.
But the most common is that men pose as women and just do a lot of online role play and waste men's time. That's about the worst of it.
Fix and flakes.
Yeah, that's the most common issues. So when I actually went back on Fet last time, it was actually to teach people how to ID, like how to navigate FetLife, how to do a good profile, how to navigate other people's profiles, how to vet people, how to vet a good dom, and how to ID somebody. So people are actually prepared to ID, like if they try to get you out to a chat from FetLife, not from another chat group,
Mhm.
they'll come prepared with a picture of somebody else with a sign with their name. So you've got to find little inventive ways of IDing someone. And one of those is to say, message me when you've got 5 minutes free, you're not at work, and you can ID yourself. And that way they can't say, oh, I can't do it right now, I'm at work, or, and then try and
Sure.
figure out a way to. And then get them to take a photo of themselves doing something that they are not likely to have stored in their phones, like touch your nose with your little finger and take a snap of that. Anything but just hold a sign up with my name, because they can easily Photoshop things like that. So
Sure.
get them to do really weird things, twirl your hair and hold it above your head, or just something really obscure, and ID them. And if they refuse to do it, that's it. Block, delete. No excuses ever. But look, like I said, even that robbery, that was the only one I had heard of in 10 years. That was in Australia. I can't speak to America or any other country that people might be in where these things have happened. But that's the only one I've heard of in 10 years. And no one got hurt. It was just hand over your wallet, okay, and it was done. But yeah, it's mostly people wasting other people's time by pretending to be somebody they're not.
And to be fair, people farming for the spank bank is not it is not exclusive to the BDSM community. People do that
Of
just
course.
in general.
Of
But
course, they do it everywhere. Yeah.
yes, but we do have calls. Apparently, this is a call-in show. Who knew?
Oh, really?
Um,
We've got to stop talking
yeah,
and let other people
yes,
talk?
I
I don't
know,
like
right?
that. Oh, all right.
Even though we did butcher the intro just a little bit, we did solicit some phone calls, and folks, we still do have open lines, so you can call us 512-991-9242 or tiny.cc/callsex. But let's talk to some folks. We have Tiffany on the line. Pronouns are she, her. And Tiffany, I will let you speak for yourself. What's on your mind today?
Hi. So I've never done this before. I'm a little
Welcome.
nervous. My husband told me, well, he offered me to call into this radio show because he listens to it all the time.
Mhm.
And we just got married on August 13th, which is Friday the 13th, because we're both kind of the wacky kind of people.
Sure.
It's cute.
But we're having a lot of issues in our sex life and how to open up to each other. And I feel so stupid going in.
Yeah, and that's okay. You know,
Why do you
if
feel stupid?
Just because I don't want to make him. I put him up on a pedestal and he's like everything to me. And I feel like I let him down.
How
I
wonderful that
hear
you're
that.
trying everything at hand. I think it's wonderful that you've called in and you're trying to do everything you can. You clearly love him and you're looking for some answers.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll throw this to the professional among us.
Yeah,
But
me
I
too.
think it also speaks a lot that your husband asked you to call in and gave you this resource to call in, because that kind of shows that he's trying to, and that he cares about you, and that he wants to see an improvement here. But Christy, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're up against, Tiffany, but I guess I just want to start by saying that we're not going to fix anything tonight. We're not going to dramatically change anything. And I hope that that can actually take a little bit of the pressure off, because this is obviously a very big experience that you're going through. And working to change that, working to reconnect, working to figure out if this relationship is serving you, that's not a destination that you ever get to. That's not a place that you're ever going to like be finally there. It's more of an aspiration, more of just a direction that you might head towards. So hopefully we can give you a little bit of insight and help you on your journey. But I just want to take some of the pressure off to find like a fix or to figure this out, because it's okay for this to be hard and it's okay for this to take a little bit of time. Can you tell me a little bit about what the conflict between y'all is?
Well, a couple weekends ago, I went to work at 9 a.m. I'm a waitress, and he decided to drink all day.
Mhm.
I came home, and he had already been to that intoxication level where there's, not remembering anything at that point.
Mhm.
He had drank a lot, and unfortunately, I had to call the cops on him. And it was really hard because I know he's not that person. He's usually such a great husband to me.
Sure. Well, it's
And that
fair to
was
say that
hard.
one action, that one day doesn't define a life, but it sounds like these are some choices that he made, that he did that. So I guess I'm curious about where you find the relationship itself. Is this an aberration? Is this a thing that happened one time that y'all have been able to move past? Or is it more of a pattern? Is it something that you are worried about happening continuously?
No, it was a one-time thing, and it scared me to death because
Sure.
the way he was treating me he has never treated me like that before.
Mhm.
And I know he has a lot of, I don't know how to explain this, but he has a lot of views, he strongly believes he's an atheist, and he strongly believes in other things. He's strong, and when he strongly believes in something, and when he gets intoxicated,
Mhm.
it heightens that 10 times more.
Sure.
So when I came home from work, I didn't want to fight with him. I had just done a 9-hour day at a waitressing job. I was just like, I don't want to fight. He got arrested, and ever since then, I've done everything I could do. I went to a lawyer, and we got the non-protective order dropped and all that so he could come home.
Mhm.
And he's been good since then. But I'm struggling to
Yeah, it
find
sounds like the
out.
story that I'm hearing is that you are working through the trauma of an incredibly challenging experience. Is it at all the case that if this one day hadn't happened, that your marriage would be in a very different place?
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Well, you can say that it isn't him, and that may be fair in a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean that this traumatic experience didn't happen. And it's okay that you're having some challenges in moving past it. You know, if you're telling me that you two have been married for just about 2 months, I have to imagine that this is a pretty recent experience. And it makes sense to me that with as overwhelming and scary as it was, with all of the follow-up and the re-traumatization that comes from having to deal with police and lawyers and the legal system, it feels human to me that you would still be struggling with this. What kind of support are you getting to work through these feelings?
I'm not getting a lot of support. I don't have much family. My mother has passed away, and my dad has never been in my life. I don't have much support besides his family, which unfortunately, since this has happened, has turned
Tiffany,
against
how long
me.
have you two known
I
each
feel
other?
completely alone.
I hear
We
that.
haven't known each other that long. I would say February, which is, I know not that long, but when we met, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced in my life before.
You know what? New love can be intoxicating, so don't blame yourself at all. If you missed something, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Just don't blame yourself, because that new feeling can be, it can kind of cloud your judgment, And I don't know that that's what's happened here, but I think one of the most important things to do is to allow yourself to have made potentially made a mistake, or maybe not. I don't really know enough about it, but that does seem pretty quick. One thing that I'm fond of saying is that, especially when it comes to alcohol, it doesn't really, the way a person behaves when they're drunk doesn't necessarily change their behavior. It just sort of kind of reveals their character. Do you think that this is the case? Or do you think it's a different version of him? Or do you think it's a completely different person that came out that night? What?
I think that he's had so many bad relationships in the past that I've heard not only from him, but his family and his friends and everybody else, that maybe it's being taken out on me.
Sure. Well, Tiffany, I want to check in just about a few things quickly if I can. Do you feel safe being in this relationship right now? Do you feel like you are able to, stay together and work through all of these things while making sure that you have everything you need to be, sleeping reasonably well, to be eating reasonably well, to be taking care of your day-to-day needs without having to look over your shoulder or feel concerned about like your physical well-being?
The crazy part is yes, ever since I've
Okay.
dropped the protective order,
Yeah.
yes, he's the most loving and caring. And
Okay.
I really think it has a lot to do more with his past than anything.
Yeah, if you feel safe right now and you feel like you want to work through these things, then there's definitely hope here and there's definitely a possibility for that. I would encourage you to prioritize that first question, that sense of safety, above everything else right now, to continually ask yourself, do I have everything I need in order to be getting good sleep, in order to feel unconcerned about my physical well-being? Do I have to be looking over my shoulder or watching everything I say in order to keep my physical body safe? And if the answer to that question remains yes, the next question is, do you feel like this is a relationship that you want to continue to work on? Is it something that you want to continue to be in? If the answer to that question is yes, I think you have a lot of opportunities here. But it's going to be important before you work on the relationship or before you make any meaningful changes here, that you have the opportunity to process and heal from that traumatic event. The relationship can be absolutely wonderful, or it can be mediocre, it can be terrible. Whatever the relationship is, it sounds like you had a remarkably traumatic experience and that you may need a little bit of support in healing from that experience. And so to that end, I would really encourage you to seek support from a mental health professional of some stripe. It sounds like this is something that's been kind of haunting your memory and your feelings for a while now. So I would really encourage you to speak with a therapist or some other professional to focus on that healing. And as you begin to feel like you have your feet under you, as you begin to feel more secure, then you can start to work towards healing the relationship.
Mm.
How does all of that
Can I-
resonate for you?
Oh, sorry.
No, that sounds really rational too, compared to what I've been going through. It's been irrational and irrational feelings. It's been up and down all around.
Sure.
I feel like I've been on a roller coaster that I don't know where it's gonna stop,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I've
Tiffany?
even talked to some different counselors, and it's hard. I've been
Tiffany, did you say your partner gave you this number?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you say that your partner gave you this number to call?
Yes, he did, because he listens to your podcast.
Right. I am not a qualified anything. I don't have any qualifications in anything to do with anything, but my
You are
spidey
qualified
senses,
a lot of stuff.
my
Whether
spidey senses are
licensed or nothing, you are qualified of a lot.
No. My spidey senses are tingling, and I think it is a very strong possibility that your partner got drunk because he wants to tell you something and couldn't. If I had to take a wild guess on what happened, I would say that perhaps your partner has something he needs to tell you and maybe couldn't. This show is very centered around sexuality in all its different forms, and perhaps he has a fetish or an interest, or maybe he feels some insecurities about how he feels sexually that he would really like to discuss with you and can't. Maybe he got drunk thinking that he would be able to get up the nerve to tell you something and then couldn't. I could be completely way off here, but for me, just listening to what you said and then for him to give you this number, that's what it adds up to me in my head. Maybe if you sat down and just said, look, is there something you would like to talk to me about sex and sexuality? Is there something that you would like to explore or anything that you think about? If he says something and you hate it, don't say that. If he says, oh, I'm having, I don't know, let's just be really revolting and say, I'm having feelings about having sex with animals or something really revolting. Don't say, ooh, I hate you, da 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 da. Just say, okay, well, these are thoughts.
Okay.
That particular thing can't ever be an action because it doesn't line up with consent. But just hear him out. He sounds like he's got something bursting out of him. The only reason I'm saying this is because it's very odd that he would give you this particular number based on the content of this show.
Okay.
It's a fair point.
And if he came out with anger that he doesn't normally have. So he might just have a little something that's gnawing away at him that he might need to talk to you about and just doesn't know how. And he just needs a receptive, open ear to listen.
And how
Yeah.
and how do I approach that?
Well, I personally would sit him down and say, listen, what happened has had a profound impact on me. I'm so unsettled and feel so, like I've had the rug ripped out from under me. I feel like maybe you've got something on your mind that, is upsetting you. And I don't know whether you've got something that you need to talk to me about that's something personal on the inside, or whether you've got unresolved issues from previous relationships. Whatever it is, it needs to come out. You either need to talk to me or you need to talk to a professional. But either way, I can't go through what you did before. I feel like you got drunk because you needed to say something, or you're upset about something, and that's fine. But I can't go through that again.
You know
Your
what might
coping
help, Tiffany?
mechanism does not work for me.
I think that's great advice. And Tiffany, you know what you could do is watch this clip with him.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you
I'll
don't even
say
have to
to
broach
your
the
partner,
subject.
yeah, I'll say to your partner, if he is listening or does listen eventually, that we did an episode about how to talk about some of those things, about how to disclose to your partner some of your more challenging kinks and things like that. So if that is the case, if that's part of the block in communication here, I'll make sure to leave a link to that episode that we did with Amberly Rothfield in the show notes for this specific episode. So wherever you are watching this, make sure to click on that link, and we'll have a little bit more information for you to be able to unpack this with your wife. To you, Tiffany, I think I would say before we wrap up to just do what you can to give yourself the opportunity to feel safe. To take some time to rest, to take some time to sort of let go of a lot of this tension. I get that you're probably looking for answers. You're looking for solutions. You want these problems to go away, and that's human. We put our hand on a hot stove and we naturally pull it back. It makes sense to want to get away from this pain. And so I would encourage you that rather than trying to fix this problem right now, that you do what you can to charge your battery, to get some rest, to get some food and support.
And it might have nothing to do with you, Tiffany. It might just be all him.
No, I love him so much, and he's such a good guy, and I don't think he had any real ill intentions. I just, like you said, I think he has something more to say, and it was harder for him to see it than to do that.
Yeah.
Well, Tiffany, you are getting so much love in the chat right now. The chat for the show, folks are really identifying with what you've got to say. So you're certainly not alone, and it was very brave of you to take this step and call in and address this. So I want to thank you very much for doing that, and I hope we helped just a little bit. And this doesn't have to be the end of our interaction. I would encourage you to email us, sex@atheist-community.org. And yes, call back and please give us updates, because it sounds like Christy said, this isn't going to be resolved tonight.
And he'll be able to listen to this episode?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. You can listen to this episode. It is going out live right now, so you can listen to it on.
And to people who can't actually admit to their kinks or admit to their problems, it's okay to say, yes, I have a problem that I can't quite talk about just yet. Or, yes, I actually do have some kinks and fetishes that I just can't talk about quite yet. I'm too embarrassed, or I'm not comfortable enough, but yes, I have them. And sometimes that's enough to get it off your chest and stop the frustration and let the other person know without feeling embarrassed. Just admit that you have them and they're there.
Or whatever he wants to say. I want him to know that I'm here and I married him for life. And that's not going to change either way.
Yeah. It sounds like you're going to be okay, Tiffany. If he's a good guy most of the time and this was a one-off.
He's such a good guy.
Sounds like things are going to be okay. Please call back.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Absolutely. I hope you get
Most
some rest and
welcome.
take very, very good care of yourself, and that we can talk
Yeah.
soon.
You
care.
as well. I'll call back. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Please
Thank
call
you.
back. Yes, we want to
Thanks,
know what's going
Tiffany.
on. Bye, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Oy,
Yeah,
that's heavy.
That's tough.
for sure. For sure. And I guess I just want to take a moment to encourage anybody who is going through these types of challenges that trauma is not the bad thing that happened. Trauma is not the car accident that you're in. Trauma is not the time that the cops were called or the argument that you had with your spouse. Trauma is the impact of those things. So if you're in a car accident, the trauma is the broken arm that you got from that accident. And we all know that you can be in a high-speed crash and miraculously walk out of it perfectly fine. You can also be in a little fender bender and wind up with terrible whiplash. So I want to really stress to everybody listening that you don't need to justify your pain. If you are experiencing the impact of that situation, if you are experiencing trauma, you don't need to apologize for that or justify it before seeking support from family and friends, from your community, and from a helping professional. So, on that note, let's take a moment and get a look at what's been going on around the rest of the ACA.
Had this dream that there was golden feces coming from the sky, taking a on his dad's church.
Hi, it's good to be on.
Thank you for calling. What do you got for us today?
Well, I have a story about time travel and how I time traveled myself.
Is there a DeLorean involved? Oh, hey, Jesus, do you forgive me? Yeah, you're good. You're square. That doesn't make you square with the person that you've wronged.
Yeah, or with mortal law. Like, great, you earned your way back into heaven. Super duper for you.
1 million subs by the end of the day. We can do this, you guys, for the nonprofits.
I will dress like Dr. Evil. If we get to 1 million subs, I'll shave my head bald and
oh my God.
And I'll come in and do the 1 million subs thing.
I can do this all day long. You ain't got no power and your God ain't got no power. I ain't afraid your God could give me a hangnail. Why can't you answer a simple question? What good would it do for you to read scripture?
Oh, my favorite part of every episode.
Fantastic work.
I love it. That was amazing. All right, but we do have another caller, and let's get him on here. What do you say? We have Josh from Massachusetts. Josh, pronouns are he, him. And Josh, what did you want to talk about today?
Hi.
Hi.
Big fan of the ACA. But I've never actually watched the show before. It's just now that you guys have been showing clips of, all the ACA productions, it got me thinking, hey, I have a topic that doesn't get discussed very much and it might be pertinent to the show.
Sure. Well, we're glad to hear from you. What's on your mind tonight?
Not the easiest thing to talk about, but
it's okay, man. You're among friends, and you're probably in the least judgmental environment that you could possibly hope to be. So go ahead, spit it out, get it off your chest, Josh.
Okay. Ever since I was a young teen, I noticed that as I was getting older, my ability to be attracted to someone of a younger age was still present. And I assume, it's probably because I was abused as a child. And it's kind of like, I've looked at studies that say it's like a cross wiring in the brain. So I guess what I want to talk about is intrusive thoughts and the negative impact they can have on the people that go through them.
Yeah, absolutely. There are all types of different stripes of anxiety that can be caused by trauma, all kinds of different sorts of obsessive thoughts, and they can be incredibly challenging for a lot of people. It's really just another one of those things that can come out of a traumatic experience. And, I think where it gets tricky for a lot of people is where they begin to confuse those things with a legitimate kink or fetish. And so it's important to recognize the
yeah.
difference between like sex and sexuality versus coercion or rape and these different kinds of things. But most of all, I want to just take a moment and recognize that your thoughts, your fantasies, your fears, your dreams, your hopes, your nightmares, those aren't anything that you need to apologize for. Your actions, your words, your behaviors, you're responsible for those to yourself, to your community, to your fellow human. But those thoughts, those things that happen in your head are just thoughts, and they're not necessarily something we can control. Certainly, there's opportunity to manage them and to heal from some of those traumatic experiences. But that's not to say that we will ever fully have mastery over our thoughts. And the type of thought policing that people often experience in particularly Christianity can really only serve to make those types of things harder. How does any of that resonate with your experience?
Well, I was never really strong-armed into going to church or anything. I went through a period of time where I was a Wiccan, living Satanist. I went through, different phases where I wound up saying, how are any of us supposed to know if there's a creator? And I mean, yeah, that's kind of separate.
Well, I guess what I'm interested in is what does it look like for you to work to heal from those traumatic experiences? What kinds of things have worked for you, and what kinds of things might you still be looking for in terms of that trauma healing?
It's difficult, but I hear that exposure therapy is helpful. It's just very difficult for me. I stay inside most of the time. Like, I don't even like going to the grocery store because there's chances for my mind to go in a direction I don't want it to.
Sure. Well, it definitely sounds like you are up against some pretty meaningful challenges with regards to healing. Can you tell me any steps that you have taken or are taking to actively work towards healing some of this trauma?
Yeah, I've been in therapy since I was 4 years old. And I think it's really important. And if there's anyone listening right now that has intrusive thoughts, go to a therapist. Their job is to help you, not to make you feel like a monster.
Sure. Glad to hear you've gotten some support.
I've been saying this for years. People who suffer with these attractions that are harmful to others, we've got to stop demonizing them. It's not like you invited these in. These are things that unfortunately happen against your will. And until we make people comfortable enough to be open about them, we can't find ways to help. Obviously, they're lines you can't cross. You cannot engage with people and children and animals and inanimate objects that can't consent. That would be wrong. That's right. And you know that. And we also know that most people with these attractions actually don't cross that line. It's actually a much smaller percentage that can't seem to enforce their own boundaries and do cross that line. And some of it's not even a real attraction. Some of it's just opportunistic. That I can't even imagine the strength and courage it took you to call. So thank you for that. And fuck the person who did that to you. Fuck them to hell if there is one.
I kind of want to.
I'm going to do it.
I'm glad you did, Josh. I'm glad you did. And I want to just really quickly reiterate what Christy and Tanjil have said is that, you didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. It is a burden, But if you can face this burden, recognize that the attraction is either immoral or the person you're attracted to can't consent or doesn't consent. The fact that you can handle that in a responsible way, I mean, good for you, right? If you can beat
Well, it's
this,
easier.
you can
It's
go ahead.
easier for me than other people in my situation because you probably won't know this, but there's a term thrown around in certain forums, the term non-exclusive, and this doesn't mean like not talking about how many partners you have. Non-exclusive meaning that you're also able to be attracted to adults. And
lovely.
I think I'm very fortunate for that because I've had the most wonderful relationship for the past 5 years. She accepts, who I am, all the things I struggle with. She's right there. And yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful.
So, I mean, don't assume that someone who, to the audience, don't assume that someone who has, those kind of attractions, don't assume that that's the only kind of attraction they have,
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just glad to hear that you've been able to find some acceptance and integrate this part of yourself. I would encourage you to continue to have some compassion for yourself, to recognize again that this is not a choice that you made. And the fact that you're still struggling with this doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you deserve bad things. It just means that this is a very difficult thing to struggle with. You're not bad at it. It's just hard. And so even as you
I
are
used to blame
continuously
myself.
working to heal, it makes sense that it would be challenging.
I used to blame myself.
Sure. A lot of people
That's
do,
unfortunate.
and that's okay. It's not maybe the best thing for you, but it's not completely unreasonable. It makes sense. I don't think that thought, that blame, that guilt is really serving you. And so I'd like to give you permission to let go of it. But the fact that you feel that feeling is completely valid.
And the fact that you recognize that some of your attractions might not be healthy and are committed to not acting on them, good for you. Good for you. You may have suffered abuse as a child, as I did, not sexual abuse, but you may have suffered abuse as a child. But what you can do is you can make sure that this ends with you, and you won't burden anybody else with it.
That's the
You
last
may have to
thing
carry
that I
this
wanted
burden.
to
Yeah.
say to the audience is that's the last thing I wanted to say is that it's a cycle, and if you
Yes.
are part of that cycle, and it's not of your choice. You didn't choose to be afflicted with that.
Exactly.
And that's you. It's easy to overlook that, though. It's
Sure.
because if you were to just walk up to someone on the street and start up a conversation and mention it, your life could be a danger. I think the stigma is almost as dangerous as the people who commit the acts, to me, because people, I don't know. I mean, if someone has no one to talk to, no one to turn to, I can only imagine how dark their life could get.
Yeah.
Being shut out
Could be.
from the rest of society is not. Yeah,
It could be
I don't
lonely.
know.
And Josh, I want to
But
just
thank you
I
guys
want
so
to
much for taking my call.
hey, kudos to you for calling. Like Tanjil said, I'm sure that took a lot of courage. And just in closing, I just want to reiterate that the cycle can end with you. It sounds like it will end with you. And I'm really glad that you called in today.
Yeah, I'm not having any children.
Sorry to hear it. I'm glad that you are able to recognize that this is not your fault and that you've been working towards healing. And I really appreciate you just sharing your experience so that we can all recognize that we don't need to victimize people twice by shutting them out of our society.
Yeah, and don't, please, if you have intrusive thoughts, don't hurt yourself, please. it's not worth it.
That's
All right.
Get support.
Important to say. Thank you.
Important to say. Well, Josh, we're going to move on, but I again want to thank you for
guys
calling
for taking
in.
my call.
All right. You take care of yourself.
You guys have a great.
Will
Boy.
do.
You too.
Yeah.
Good on,
you know,
good on
Dude,
Josh, though, for calling.
We're getting some heavy calls.
for sure.
Yeah, right?
It's important to remember that sex is play. You know, that we are here to talk about love and life and relationships, but play doesn't mean that it's not important. Like, just because we're talking about recreation doesn't mean we're talking about something that's insignificant. And when that play turns into abuse, when that love turns into violence, there is incredible harm that can be done. So, you know, even as we are kind of poking fun at a very silly but valuable website, and as we're talking about different ways to use toys and to play games and to sort of goof off sexually and romantically, it is worth remembering that there are incredibly important aspects to all of these conversations.
Well, actually, that's one of the things I respect about the BDSM community. You're very unlikely to go home with someone from a nightclub or a bar and discuss your boundaries. And a lot of women I can attest to will tell you that, you know, they've gone home with some guy and there's been some boundaries crossed. And the women are very loath to say anything. They don't want to, you know, make things uncomfortable or ruin the mood. And that just doesn't happen in the BDSM world. Everything's very upfront about what you will do, what you won't do, what your safe words are. And that's why I'm a little bit of a fan. I think things can be a lot safer when you're negotiating everything up front. Look, and people can sometimes ask, well, doesn't that take all the fun out of it? Well, actually, no. It's even more exciting because you know that this play is going to include a certain amount of things that are never going to cross your boundaries. And it's all the lead up, the build up can be phenomenal. Much better than foreplay you didn't actually want. So
Yeah, no, Puck, part of our show, pointed out in the chat that when you form a community where people are actually going to classes and reading books and having conversations and exchanging information and learning and discussing their sexuality, suddenly incidences of abuse start to evaporate. It's almost as if sexual education is a way of preventing harm.
Funny that, right?
Funny that.
Yeah, funny that.
And if it does get out of hand, we've always got Christy's safe word, which, as we all know, is pumpkin.
Oh, well, to that end, as we are talking about how to connect with community and how to become more educated about sex and everything else, Tanjil, I have to ask, how has FetLife.com, like FetLife itself, actually added value to your life? I mean, why would you recommend it to others?
Oh, wow. Because it's a wonderful way to safely explore your fetishes and kinks. So you might only ever want to do a little bit of online role play. You might want to join a community, become a massive player, or anywhere in between. You might only want to go to private parties. So FetLife is a gateway to exploring your sexuality.
To all the things that your religion warned you about.
Exactly. And just to introduce you to a really great bunch of people. In my experience, people who practice BDSM are lovely, warm, caring, fairly fastidious about safe, sane, and consensual play. So it's a wonderful place to start and find your place. It's also a wonderful place to be exposed to things that you've never heard of, that you might not know that you're interested in. you'll very rarely start with one thing and end with the same thing. My kinks and fetishes have changed over the years many, many times. Your
Same.
core substance generally stays the same, but all your little side interests will often come and go. So it's just a wonderful experience all round.
Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and out myself to all of the folks who are watching this who maybe recently came out of religion or are just still working to really unpack a lot of the shame that comes with their religiosity. Even after you throw your Bible away or shove it into a drawer or whatever else, a lot of that shame and guilt follows for a long time. And that's certainly something our community is familiar with. But one way to work against that shame is to dip your toe in the water, and online only play, like Tanjil was describing, might be a safer, easier way of doing that. If the notion of going to a dungeon party or even just going to a munch feels too intimidating, meeting somebody online and just having that type of sexting role play relationship can actually be incredibly therapeutic in a lot of ways. I'll go ahead and bring up again something I mentioned on the show a couple of months ago. Slutbot is silly enough a great way of having a similar experience. I would encourage anybody who's curious to just Google that phrase, slutbot, and you'll have an opportunity to sort of play and role play and have that type of exchange with an AI, where you don't have to worry about embarrassing yourself, where you can be yourself and sort of explore in a comfortable way. But on that, Tanjil, how can people like get involved in FetLife or go to the website and set up a profile without feeling incredibly intimidated? Because I know it can feel kind of scary to navigate some of these spaces.
It does. So it's really important for you to know that 90% of people on FetLife are not experienced BDSM dungeon masters. In fact, there are very, very few of those. 90% of people are just daggy old you and me's hanging out, maybe who just want a little bit of kinky fun. Very low level BDSM players, I actually call them kinksters because a lot of people aren't actually into BDSM. They just want to mess around with some light bondage, some fun spanking, a lot of laughter and fun. Sex with collars on is what I call it. So don't be intimidated. That is the vast majority by far. A lot of them, quite a number of people, are more likely to be middle-aged and older because they've spent their lives trying to repress their sexuality and have come out at a later date. So you're looking at my age and older. Not that there aren't younger people, of course there are, but quite a few of us are older and just normal people. Dungeons are few and far between. So you don't need to worry about that. Not everyone's running around in latex and have bodies like models, quite the opposite. Dad bods abound and mum bods abound. Post-baby stretch marks and overweight and all that sort of thing. Don't be intimidated. Jump on. Do your profile and make it normal. Don't try and be sexy or impressive or sound like you know something that you don't. In fact, humility and
Humility is a very powerful coin in that community because people will sniff out your bullshit and be able to call you on it and be very turned off by, you mentioned those like domly doms that come in for the very first time and are like, oh, I'm such a badass master, and ain't nobody buying it. Just be you, be humble.
Yep.
I'm not buying it from you, Christy. I'll tell you that much.
I am a domly dom. Get your ass over here, bitch.
No,
Oops, sorry.
I think Christy is a dark horse there.
Demonetized over here.
So yeah, just be honest. I'm new to this and looking to learn, looking for friends. Don't try and jump in the deep end. Just be honest. I need to learn. So befriend me and help me. And when you want to contact, so if you see a profile and you want to contact, read it from top to bottom, and I mean to bottom, no matter how long their profile is, because they will often put a code word in, and if you don't add that to the subject line, they will just delete your message, because people hate it when you don't read their entire profile.
That might be the most like succinct and important piece of FetLife advice I've ever heard in my life.
That's
Read,
clever, yeah.
read before you respond, before you message somebody.
That's right. That's right. And don't be a dick. Don't try and be sexy and do the come. No, just hi. I'm new. I'm trying to make friends. I like the look of your profile. I read what you're into. We seem to be into other things. Can you recommend some good groups for me to be in? Don't just try and come on to people. It's repulsive from a stranger. Get to know people.
Well, we've talked about some good tips for staying safe. Do you have any particular tips for somebody who is just logging in, creating their account, setting up a profile for the first time, about how to protect their privacy and maybe avoid some like rookie safety mistakes?
Absolutely. Make all your photos private so that only friends can see them. And anyone who private messages you, ignore, do not respond, wait till you find your groups. Only add people as friends once you know them. If they have profile names like, speaking on behalf of women, if there's a guy with a profile called Pussy Destroyer, block. I mean, that I have to even say that. No, really, I have to say this, and it upsets me that I have to say this, that women don't get that.
We so
gonna make you
other.
cry.
Yeah, we so other the kink community that I think when people are looking to be open-minded and accepting, they are not really trained or experienced in where to draw that line or how to recognize the distinction between kink and abuse. And that's a important, maybe I wouldn't say necessarily difficult. I think it just takes a little bit of time in and around the community. So everything that you're saying, Tanjil, makes sense to me, because it's a lot of don't try to rush anything. Take the temperature of the room. Act like you belong there and get to know folks a little bit before you just sort of own the space.
Absolutely. Yes, but that when you first join, that is when the sharks will circle.
Sure.
That is when you're most likely to be jumped on, especially if you're a woman, because unfortunately the ratio to men to women is very disproportionate. If you're a dominant woman, you will be inundated, like 10,000 to 1 is my best guess. Sub men to women.
The community is very bottom heavy, particularly if you are a heterosexual male bottom.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So hide that fact if you are a top for a little while at least. And as I said, go find your munch group. Even if you don't want to be a part of a munch, find the person who hosts them and ask them, you hold munches in my area. Can you recommend some good groups for this area? I only want to do some online chatting. Can you recommend some good kick chat groups or something? But the person who holds the munches in the area will be in the know. They're always the best person to go to.
Yeah, well, we haven't, I think, poked fun nearly enough at how old the website is and how poor the design is and everything else. I think anybody who logs in will very quickly see what I mean. So knowing that Fet itself is like deeply in need of a revamp, are there any alternatives you might recommend? Are there any other websites that curious folks should know about?
Look, there are lots of little satellite websites, but none that are going to replace that. So you can find, if you just Google search BDSM and your local area, you're likely to find them. But it'll always lead straight back to fet. Like people will always have a fet profile. You can't escape it. It's kind of like you just have to.
To me, it's almost like having a business card, because if you go out into the kink community and you're meeting people at a munch, they're going to ask what your handle is, and so you almost have to have one just for that reason alone, even if you're not logging in.
It's absolutely true. So look, I've investigated a lot of different BDSM sites, and unfortunately, none of them have been any better.
Sure. Fair to
Any
say.
better. Yeah.
Sure.
It seems like it's, people are still filtering through that, through fet. But that's why I also say that's not where the action happens. That's just the filter to find where you need to be.
Well, are there any other final words that you'd like to impress upon the audience tonight before Nate takes us out?
Yeah, jump on fet, even if you don't have many fetishes and kinks, but you like the idea of a little slap and tickle, a little bit of being tied up, just a little bit slightly left of vanilla. You don't need to be, as I said, a leather-wearing, whip-wielding dungeon master at all. That is just simply not the vast majority of the site. Have a look around, have a browse around. People are just playing and having fun with really good structure and rules and boundaries around that fun. Check it out. I highly recommend it, even if you don't have lots and lots of fetishes or, deep sexual desires that you want to explore. If you just want a little bit of fun, jump on.
Fair to say.
Dip your toe in the water. Good advice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Tanjil, where can folks find you? Other than
Nowhere.
everywhere on the ACA.
Go away. Nowhere.
Wow. She's humble, folks, but Tanjil is ubiquitous on all of the ACA's fan groups and whatnot. So you'll see her sharing stuff. And if you want to listen to some of the other content that the Atheist Community of Austin puts out, there is a one-stop shop for audio only. Not everybody wants to look at our charming faces. You can just listen to our mellifluous voices at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. Look at those. Oh, ooh, wow. The flagship show of the ACA I see down there. Yes. And also, if you want to stay in touch, on Facebook, there is a fan group run for fans, by fans, but Christy and I are there. It's the Secular Sexuality fan book.
Tanjil is there. I think it's worth taking a quick moment to thank her for all of the incredible work that she does in supporting the atheist community by helping to make these groups exist. So thank you very, very much for all of the dedication. You and certainly I don't want to leave out other great mods and admins, but I'm sorry to interrupt, Nate. I just didn't want to let that moment pass.
Oh, thank you.
No, that's fine. Tanjil is like the conversation starter, especially in the Secular Sexuality fan group. She's the one that's asking the questions that get the comments and get the conversations going, and I've been a part of a few of them.
Like, have you farted during sex?
Yeah, that was a good one. I wanted to make a comment, but I'm like, I mean, I might, but then I'd never get another blowjob again, and that would be a crying shame. But anyways, moving on, we're going to be going into the after show at the Atheist Community of Discord. Join us there, folks. Fan run, tiny.cc/ACD Discord. I think all three of us are gonna be in there here for
if you're catching this show live, come and keep it going.
Yeah.
Well, I just have one last thing to say.
Sure. Vagina. Well said.
Vagina. Well said. Yeah.
You gotta get one vagina in there. Perhaps two if you're lucky. And if you enjoy this sort of content, folks, you can support us by buying some merch at did we update that one? Yeah, there it is. tiny.cc/merch ACA. You can get yourself one of these amazing t-shirts. You can get yourself a mug. You can even get yourself a sticker. And yes, before we go, finally, the most important part of the show is those wonderful folks who do all the work behind the scenes, like Tanjil. But there are other people doing the video, they're doing the audio, they're doing the cuts, they're doing the timestamps and the notes. A lot of people do a lot of work so that we can come up here and bring you guys this content. So let's see them. Show me that crew.
And let's not forget all the wonderful mods.
Yeah,
And
all
the
of the mods
mods.
and admins.
Hey
Quick shout out
guys.
to Kristen
And
and to all
girls.
the other people that make this work happen. Thank you all very much. To Nate for timestamps. Too many people to name, but I wanted to name check a couple of folks who have been not able to like have their picture up there, as well as the incredible folks that that you do see every week.
Absolutely. And he wasn't talking about me, Nate. He was talking about you, Nate. Okay.
You Nate, you
Oh,
Nate
yes.
indeed.
Because I know on one of them's going to be watching. But yes, our YouTube moderators, our notes people, the folks who don't get the camera time, we see you and we thank you. And Christy, you want to take us out with a little?
Yeah, I guess I'll just add, as we're kind of highlighting all of these different roles, that there are always incredible volunteer opportunities with the atheist community of Austin. That yes, we need your help to make shows like this happen. But I also want to say that for my own part, being a like active contributor and member of this community for the last several years has been remarkably fulfilling. That I honestly feel very connected to this community because of the opportunities that I have as a volunteer. And I don't want to pitch it too hard, but just to say, if you are wanting to get up off the bench, if you are wanting to be not just tangentially part of this community, but actively involved, not just in the mission, but in the connection, I would really, really invite you to look into volunteering. There are always incredible volunteer opportunities. And frankly, I know Nate, Tanjil, and I would just love to get to know you. So if you watch the show every week, if you watch any of the shows, we would love to maybe get to know you and to meet you in that way. But in the meantime, I suppose whether you are on a kick group or whether you are trolling through FetLife profiles or wherever else you might find yourself tonight, we hope that perhaps even before you join us in the Discord, that you'll take a quick moment to give yourself a big old orgasm, or better yet, to give somebody else one. Vagina.
Watch The Atheist Experience live Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTAXP and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callaxp.